Shall we begin? The answer is coming. I can do this all day.
Tear down this wall.
Ikuzo.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ikuzo Unscripted podcast powered by Jägermeister. As it's time to strike a pose and let the show begin, we have a special guest who has graced us with his in-ring style, with his charisma and in-ring proofs. He's the former FCW champion and tag team champion, NXT Tag Team Champion, and regular #1 contender for pro wrestling fashion icon, Matthew Clement, aka Tyler Breeze. Tyler, welcome to Ikuzo Unscripted podcast, and are you ready to go genuine, uncensored, and unscripted with us today?
What's going on, guys? How are you?
So, Matthew or Tyler, how should I call you?
Breeze seems to always work.
Yeah. Okay. As a kid, when you saw the disclaimer, do not try this at home, did you obey it at the time, or you were all in for some fun in the backyard?
No, luckily my mom and my dad were very much on me for that, of being like, nope, you're not allowed to do it until, obviously you start growing up and, you can do it safely and take care of yourself. So I'm sure the kid in me really was in a hurry to kind of get going, but they were very, very good at kind of keeping me in check. So.
Not the kids that watch Jeff Hardy, though. I have to say.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, did they do a good job because you actually joined the pro wrestling circuit?
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah, you trained under Lance Storm, a true legend of the industry. And did that experience maybe influence you to open your own school of pro wrestling, which you have right now?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think even when I was training with him, the thought was always kind of in my head of like, perfect world if I happen to, make it and become something or someone that, would want people to train them. Then I always kind of thought, the way Lance did it was very smart, where he, I think he actually, started the school when he was about 35, and, he just wanted to kind of be with his family and watch his kids grow up, and he had his, fun doing wrestling, and now he was, obviously built a name for himself to where he could train people. So I always just thought that was really, really cool. And I liked the fact that he could wrestle if he wanted to, but he didn't have to. And that was always really appealing to me, of the option, the freedom and the option there. So I was really, really kind of admired the way that he did things, and wanted to kind of follow in the same footsteps.
Oh, yeah. Let me ask you this, because in Montenegro, our home country, there isn't a pro wrestling school anywhere.
Wow.
No pro wrestling schools. Yeah, no, even pro wrestling on TV for quite some time.
Sure.
And for our neighbors as well, I think, neighboring countries. So when you go to a pro wrestling school, what is the first day like? I'm very interested, because in the second life, when I get reincarnated, I'm definitely going. So
Sure.
What does the first day actually look like? Start professional wrestling training.
Well, and again, obviously, going through it myself, I remember what my first day was like, where you just kind of show up and you're pretty intimidated, and you don't know what to expect, and it's called kind of unknown, and it's a mystery. So, you're sitting there nervous, and you're on edge anyway. So I know for us at Flatbacks, it's very much, easing you in and kind of going, hey guys, like, you know why you're here. This isn't to try to discourage you or to weed you out and go, this isn't for you. It was very much kind of the opposite, where we're going, if you have any questions, ask. We're very much open books, but we're going to get into it. And especially too, on our day one, we kind of talk about, not our expectations, because again, it's not like you're not going to work for us. You're hiring us to be your coaches and to teach you what we've learned. But when you see someone who, has a Flatbacks t-shirt on, there's a certain expectation being trained by myself and Spheres that, you know what you're doing, and you're safe, and you should be able to do things at a certain level. So I said, we kind of clue them in that our training kind of goes hand in hand with that, where we're going to make sure you're in shape. If you haven't prepared, you're going to know really quick. And so even the first day and the first week is really to just kind of welcome you in and go, look, if you want to do this, this is what it entails. And you'll find out very, very quickly if wrestling is for you, or, if it's for you in a reincarnated second life, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I could kill him a few times.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, you were part of the golden generation of Florida Championship Wrestling, which is now NXT. Probably the best in my opinion. But you, Roman, Seth, Dean, Bo Dallas, Enzo, Cass, I could go on and on with names, and all of you in your own ways made undeniable impact on pro wrestling and left a trace in the history. And who did you love to work the most with those guys?
Ooh, that was an interesting one because at the time, our, like you said, our roster was kind of a who's who of at that time of like, everybody was, they knew their stuff. So I had a lot of fun, working with Enzo and Cass. I had a lot of fun working with the Vaudevillains, American Alpha. And that's, those are even just, that's the tag team, the Revival at the time, like that whole tag team scene was great. And then on the other side of it, I loved working with like Hideo, Finn, Neville, Zane. I had some really fun ones, even with like Bull Dempsey, like Baron Corbin. There was a good group that really, it didn't matter who you kind of put in and who you took out. It was going to be fun. And I think every one of them was really good. Samoa Joe, I had some really fun with Samoa Joe. I'd say probably the one that I wrestled maybe even the most would be Neville. I really, really liked working with Neville. He can do anything. You know what I mean? So he was probably really, really fun. And Hideo Kenta, I really liked working with him.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, Kenta didn't find himself in WWE. I think his style, obviously coming from Japan, and a lot of injuries he's sustained. But his work with you was really fun, actually.
Yeah, he was, and again, coming in, he already had, such a built-up body of work that people knew. He just unfortunately hit a couple of really big injuries that had him out for, a year here, a year there, and it really derailed him. But he's still, we still had some fun ones despite him kind of getting injured and not being able to fully kind of get where he should have gone.
And also one of your first matches on pay-per-view was with Jushin Thunder Liger. And that would be his first and only match in WWE. How does it feel to achieve that? Was it special to step into squared circle with such a legend?
Oh, yeah.
Because
it was, super cool, man. Like it's kind of exactly what you would think it would be. Almost to where at the time when I was told, it was like, no, that's not happening. Like he doesn't work here, and that's not happening. And the fact that it was actually real, and the fact that like you said, it's the only time that he's ever been on WWE, the only person to wrestle him. Very, very cool, and like a good honor, that nobody can ever take that away from me, kind of thing. So I remember even after the match, I was just sitting there, like my fingers crossed, like hopefully he never wrestles again. Hopefully he never wrestles again. That was just like that was my thing that I got. So, but really cool. Obviously learned a lot working with them, and just being in there is just such a cool, once in a lifetime type of thing.
Yeah, it was basically when those worlds collided, the forbidden doors before it was cool. Yeah.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember because, I think at that time, a lot of WWE fans actually weren't following, not all WWE fans were following NXT, like I was watching Raw and SmackDown, but
Sure.
Still I wasn't, into NXT or regularly watching. And I remember there was that feud, I think it was on the same event, TakeOver Brooklyn, between Kevin Owens and, if I remember, Finn. And that kind of got me into the whole NXT, and that was you. And I remember watching Rey Mysterio wrestling Thunder Liger, and I was like,
yeah,
oh, this is like kind of a crossover thing.
Yep. Yeah, it was kind of just a perfect mix of, again, it's NXT was starting to really build, a fan base or a reputation, but we still hadn't, become what it was going to end up becoming, because, again, Raw and SmackDown are just that much bigger and everything else. But the fact that at that time, especially in those couple of years, we were able to hook a lot of people from, again, somebody like Liger that you saw wrestle Rey Mysterio or whatever, and now all of a sudden you're a little bit more interested in what we're doing. So we really had a lot of that stuff where, again, once they brought in like Nakamura, and once they brought in Samoa Joe and Kenta and all these guys, it really, and even Finn was a big, influence over Japan and stuff like that. So once we started bringing in some people like that, actually even before that, because we had Cesaro and Seth and, these guys from the Ring of Honor type of era that, you really kind of started, again, bringing in these different audience members that went, man, you got to see this. You got to see what they're doing over here. It's kind of cool.
Oh yeah, I mean, one of my favorite matches from early NXT is Cesaro versus Sami Zayn, 2 out of 3 falls. It
Yeah.
just phenomenal
Yeah.
wrestling.
Yeah. It's one of those ones that's, it's the classic up there. And it's almost that might have even been on, I think, the first like takeover, which was called Arrival. And it was kind of a big introduction of like, okay, I haven't seen these guys really on like Raw and SmackDown, which I think even Cesaro might have been on Raw and SmackDown at that time. You'd never seen him do what he did that night. And then it really kind of opened people's eyes of like, oh, so there's like these guys that are on Raw and SmackDown, and they can actually do really good stuff if they're in the right scenario, and NXT is that right scenario.
And NXT always had this kind of special vibe in it. And who made that special? Was it Dusty Rhodes? Was it Triple H? Apart from you, wrestlers?
I think it was a combo. I think it was Triple H's vision. So he kind of, had an idea where he wanted to almost bring back the feeling of like the territory system where, you had people from Japan and you had people from Canada and you had people from America and you had people from wherever, and you could bring them in to, almost bring like fresh faces in, but they were stars. You know what I mean? They knew what they were doing. They were just very easy to come from one place and put in another place, and you're excited about it. So his overall vision, and then I think just striking gold at the time with, again, like you said, with the roster, it was kind of from top to bottom, tag teams, women, men, it didn't really matter. Everyone was so in their kind of groove of what they were and really trying to build NXT so that it was right up there with Raw and SmackDown, that they just kind of, it all added together, I think. And under Triple H's main vision for everything. And again, it was just kind of the perfect mixture of things. Again, add in a Dusty Rhodes and add in some, a couple of people here and there that really added to what ended up being NXT.
Oh yeah, so Triple H sounds like Nick Fury of NXT.
A little bit.
Remarkable people, yeah.
It was like that for a time too, because it was almost like, all right, who's next, man? Like, who's coming in? And it was at almost every takeover or pay-per-view or whatever, you knew that maybe there was a chance of seeing like one of your favorites from somewhere else coming in, because it was like nonstop, this like just revolving door of Bobby Roode and Samoa Joe and Kenta and Shinsuke. It's like, oh my God, Adam Cole, who else do we got? You know what I mean?
All right, yeah. But let me ask you this: like, obviously now you have perspective as a trainer. A lot of those guys that came into NXT had experience from Ring of Honor, from PWG, things like that. And I know the WWE at the time, when they opened the Performance Center, they wanted to push stars that were like homemade. Do you think now, obviously, as a trainer, you have that new perspective probably. Can you really put someone from the Performance Center right into that like big league, or he needs that experience from maybe a smaller promotion, from starting out kind of thing?
I think both are possible. There's really not like a one way or another, because I mean, if you have a guy like a Kurt Angle who comes in from nothing and he has nothing but essentially the Performance Center style and the training at that time, what it was, he didn't really need any seasoning or whatever. He got that as he went, and where even when he debuted on Raw and SmackDown, he was very, very new and not experienced whatsoever, but he learned very quickly because he wanted to be great at this. On the other side of it, it doesn't really hurt getting more experience, like having a guy like an Adam Cole who started to find himself a little bit in Ring of Honor and stuff like that. But there still is very much a transition point to when you come in from being a wrestler to being an entertainer, and you need to figure out the difference between being a superstar on TV or just having a wrestling match. And again, we've seen lots of good wrestlers come in, but they don't know how to be superstars yet. And that's a massive difference on, how far they end up going. Whereas like a homegrown person, for example, where I'm almost very much a WWE homegrown person, because I did the independents for 3 years, but I didn't really do anything of note. I never really worked the PWGs or the ROHs or any of that stuff. I just kind of was around being in front of a crowd and getting a little bit of experience, but I definitely needed the transition of, you're not a wrestler anymore. You're a TV wrestler, which is very, very different. And even again, like guys like Samoa Joe, luckily he was on TV, so he kind of had that type of stuff. But when you come in with a little bit of experience, it does help, someone coaching you or someone cluing you in on, hey, take a little bit of time right here because the camera is going to be a little slow to get you and they're trying to make you a star on TV. And if you run around and you do all this stuff, they're going to just chase you and they can't find you and make you a star. So there is a difference. And I don't know if there's a pro or con one way or another. In the end, if someone wants to, kind of get where they're going, they're going to.
Yeah, but listen, nor Kurt Angle nor you have Meltzer's 5, and that's only relevant.
We'll not even get into that.
Yeah, but now speaking about your background and everything, do you remember your first This Is Awesome match?
Probably, yeah, honestly, it was probably like the first time that everything started to click about like what we do was probably that first takeover match with Sami Zayn. That was really when I kind of started to realize what wrestling was. And I went, oh, okay. Okay. I've been doing things wrong. And then I figured it out.
Yeah. I mean, I remember that fatal four-way between you and Tyson Kidd, Neville and Sammy. And, you go from that kind of a match. And I remember at the time I knew who Tyson Kidd was because obviously he wrestled on the TV. And I didn't know about any of you, but I saw from phenomenal wrestling. And I saw kind of this almost like more personable almost wrestling match. Were you aware of that and that you are doing something special in that moment for the crowd of the WWE that maybe haven't experienced that before?
I think so. Like that fatal four-way is one that's always really up there. Like if I was ever to, try to sum up my career or sum up what I do with one match or try to hook somebody with a match, it would probably be that one. Just because of the elements to it and kind of like you said, how special it was, where maybe we didn't realize how special it would become, but at the time we kind of had an idea of, NXT was getting hot. The roster was really hot. The stuff that Tyson was doing with Neville was great. The stuff that I was doing with Sammy was great. We did the first takeover. It was awesome. We did the next one. It was getting better and better and better. And people were getting more and more excited to now. And I think even at the time, Sammy was, they were getting with him. He was their guy that like was really,
he was wanted over a lot.
Yeah. They wanted to see him as NXT champion. They just really wanted to see it. And so we kind of had a feeling that, that was going to be the culmination of like, man, they think this is his night. You know what I mean? And I think knowing that going in and the amount of time that we had and the amount of freedom that Triple H gave us to kind of go, hey man, you guys got like 40 minutes. So like have fun and do your thing and like show why we're investing in you guys as superstars and why the crowd should be here and watching. And, it becomes one of those can't miss type of events. And I think we really kind of saw the writing on the wall of like, man, we are going up. Like everything that we're doing is getting more and more popular and everybody is working their ass off. And I think that Fatal 4-Way was kind of a really good, not a kickstart because we were kind of already going before that point, but it really took us to another level.
Oh, yeah. Hearing you speak about Sami Zayn, I just got flashbacks from Bloodline storyline, Elimination Chamber, all over. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? It's so funny, but it's in the same type of vein where you just see it, someone who's likable and they just naturally start to latch onto him. And Sammy had it back then. He had it right there too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you had a chance to work with Roman Reigns as well. And way before he became the tribal chief, even before he became Roman Reigns, working close with him, grabbing that tag team championship with him. Could you hint that he will become the future face of the WWE back then? Not the one they tried to push down our throats, but this one.
I knew he was going to be a big deal, but I think it's very difficult to ever, predict how big he can become. To where again, this bloodline storyline and everything they've been doing has just been like, he's been champion for like 1,000 days or something at this point. Like he's been killing it. Everything that they've done has been next level stuff. And so I knew back then, they were gonna make him a star, but he's done a hell of a job, even going above and beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, but obviously now you're saying you guys like Roman, who was, in my opinion, when he was, as Peter said, pushed down to our throats at some point, I always thought of him like he was a good in-ring worker. He just needed to find this character. And based on that, I wanted to ask you, what do you think essentially is more important? Do you think someone can be okay in-ring worker, but it's more important for him to be a great character, to have charisma, to have speaking abilities, or would you prefer to have him first, like in-ring abilities, and then we'll build off there what we can do?
I know for me, I will always lean towards character, and that's just because of how I went. I got into wrestling very much for the wrestling aspect. I liked wrestling. I liked the athletic part. I liked doing moves. I liked wrestling matches. So I got into wrestling because of that, and that got me to a certain point. But then when you get to that point, you start to realize that wrestling is a lot cooler when they care about all the wrestling that you're doing. And if you're just a wrestler, but if you don't have much of a character or personality, then they're not going to care about your match as much as somebody else, right? So once you figure that out, then you start to put the importance on personality and character. And then when they care about you, then you just do enough wrestling or as much as that match requires or whatever you need to do to get the reactions that you're going for. But they're going to be way bigger than if you have just some, crazy random wrestling match, because even if you look at things now, there's a lot of people who are really good wrestlers out there. But who are the ones who are like, their music hits and people go crazy? You can see a million people at this point do RKOs. But why does everybody care when Randy does it? Right? Randy doesn't care. Randy doesn't care if there's 20 RKOs on a show, because when he hits his, they're going to go crazy for it. You know what I mean? And that's just the importance of caring about Randy Orton, not about his wrestling moves or what he does and everything else. And I think that's really important, to where even John Cena, one of the probably best examples of it, you cared about him and you cared about what he was doing. And then the wrestling matched it, right? But it was, I don't think John was ever, really the greatest wrestler in the world, but performer and star, barely any could touch him. You know what I mean? And again, that should just tell you what the important part of it is, and where even a guy like John would put his importance of going, okay, should I, try to be a better wrestler, or should I try to really connect to the crowd and have them care about my matches? And again, like I said, once you start to figure it out, I think it might be the difference between, a performer who's new in their career and they're inexperienced or experienced, but almost all of them slowly figure out that, your body won't hold up as much as you want if you just rely on wrestling. And, again, even if you look at guys like The Rock, who started out as Rocky Maivia, and he's in there and he's wrestling and doing all this stuff, and people don't care until he becomes The Rock and starts raising an eyebrow. And Stone Cold Steve Austin, the same thing. He's in WCW and he's in these crazy wrestling matches. And he's very talented, and nobody cared until he started kicking and punching and, putting a middle finger up as Stone Cold Steve Austin. So it's such a difference. And again, some people love wrestling. I love wrestling. I think wrestling is the coolest thing in the world. But it's also really cool when they care about you, and now you get paid more money to do it, and you get better reactions to do it. Way better.
Yeah, I mean, we as the fans, all fans, bitch about how Attitude Era was the peak wrestling, And we have occasionally these glimpses of Attitude Era with your character of Tyler Breeze, with LA Knight currently, with people like Elias. I will never forget the heat Elias and Kevin Owens got in Seattle. That was brutal, and they buried him.
Yeah,
I will not get over it. Yeah, but and I think also with today's wrestling climate, like you said, there are a lot of guys who are great workers. Like even somebody. That's why I felt a little bit about Ricochet. Like a guy can do double moonsaults and 630s, but I think in Apollo Crews as well, also very athletic.
Yeah.
Amazing. But they had kind of a problem getting this character where you can do double moonsault and we will be all amazed, but there isn't a story where we can fit you. And I think Ricochet is getting there now. But that kind of a thing.
And you're exactly right. Like a guy like Ricochet, for example, who looks like $1 million, can do everything under the sun. He could, wrestle circles around anybody that he wanted to. But why isn't he, in a Roman Reigns spot? Or why isn't he, higher than he is? Until, again, like you said, look what he started to tap into with, certain things with certain people and the stuff with Logan and all that stuff. You're starting to kind of see the personality and the character and the, reason to care about all the insane, crazy stuff that he does, as opposed to just, I don't really know how I feel about him, but he does cool stuff. And I go, oh, for the moment. And then I go on to the next thing. You know what I mean? So I think he's really starting to figure out, what that little missing piece to elevate him is. And it's very, apparent as you watch Raw and SmackDown where he's at and where he's going, and listen to the reactions that people are starting to get with him even more and more and more. Even a guy like Kofi Kingston, for example, where he was around for a long time and he got to a certain point, but that was about it until he came up with New Day stuff. And all of a sudden the New Day exploded with all three of those guys. And it's just, again, it's just the matter of adding that missing puzzle piece of why you're not a bigger star than you are. And it's kind of cool to watch people, slowly click as to what they're missing or that one little thing that they didn't realize until they do. And then they go, oh, okay, I got it now.
There are no rules but one. Drink Jägermeister at minus 18 degrees Celsius.
Speaking of New Day, you are great friend with Xavier Woods, and you're with him on Up, Up, Down, Down. And Xavier also played part into creation of Tyler Breeze and saved you for getting fired in some way, right?
That's right. Yeah, he was a big part of he's obviously so talented, not only when it just comes to wrestling, but coming up with opportunities and coming up with, he was going for his PhD, he's a smart man, you know what I mean? And so at the time he was messing around with like a lot of Photoshop and video editing and stuff like that. And so we just kind of came up with, a couple of characters and made videos for them. We edited them together and kind of really brought characters to life so that instead of trying to convince somebody, hey, I have this paragraph that I wrote out of this character that's going to be really good. Very rarely can you make somebody imagine that. But when they actually see it on a video, then they go, oh, I kind of see this. Okay, there might be something here. And that's exactly what ended up happening with the Tyler Breeze stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and also at that time, when you were doing the selfie character for every entrance, I actually forgot at that time, matches too. Yeah, doing selfie was kind of a thing because everybody does it. But at that time, like doing a selfie was kind of a thing everybody did. Though it was kind of almost new still.
Yeah, it was actually very new because originally I didn't even really know about it. I was just going to use a mirror, like a makeup pocket mirror, and Triple H was the one who had the idea, and he went, I think selfies are really big right now. Why don't we do that? And he said, why don't you just use a phone? And I went, yeah, that's cool. I can do that. And it was just like, again, it was almost like a new type of thing where people started doing it for whatever reason. Now it sounds so weird because it's just so weird, it's so commonplace that it's not even a thing anymore, but it's almost weird thinking back to a job. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. But it's just, kind of didn't have the same effect because it was, again, it's just like everybody takes selfies here and there. Whereas, again, back then, it's so weird to imagine the time when wasn't really a thing, and now it's a thing.
Yeah, it was kind of I remember at the time, social media, it was kind of a special photo you take when you do selfie. It wasn't common that you do it every day. It was like a special occasion on your feed.
Yeah, like you had to go out of your way to do a certain thing called a selfie. Like it wasn't like you said, it's just not a picture. It's just, it was something special. Which again is so weird to think about, but I guess that's almost 10 years ago.
Yeah. Also, those articles about doctors saying that selfies a day is marked that you are a psychopath and similar stuff.
I believe it. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. So obviously we were talking about your first run at NXT, but truly I think some of your best work comes from your second run at NXT, 2018, 2019, 20. You had great tag team work, and you also had a great solo work. What was different to you now coming into the NXT, now returning? How different were you, and how different was NXT this time?
It was very different, very different. So, not only had NXT kind of become different to where, again, the first time around, it was very much on the upswing to where everybody was, who you were going to see as stars in the next 3, 4, 5 years. Now it had kind of turned into like
third brand.
Yeah, a little bit. And you knew what you were going to expect with NXT. Like before it was kind of a mystery and you were almost like pleasantly surprised. Now you almost have an expectation of what NXT is going to be. So, it definitely changed in terms of that and in terms of, how long it had been around and what people expected out of it and stuff like that. And then as a performer, like me as Tyler Breeze, the character, I'd really switched, kept the original, I guess, why you latched onto that character and why you, cared about him. But we had gone through a lot at that point. I had kind of done, the entire original Tyler Breeze stuff in NXT, the original Tyler Breeze stuff up on Raw and SmackDown, myself and Dango teaming up, getting into the Fashion Files stuff to where that added a whole new chapter to what Tyler Breeze could be, which, again, it's, if you watch back, yeah, like if you watch back to the NXT stuff, it's very much, self-centered, model who just cares about himself and all this other stuff. Fashion Files really opened up, a whole different kind of side to where you went, man, this guy's kind of like a funny idiot, and like they just do this stuff and they just do whatever, but we're okay and we still get forgiven and they love us because because we're making them laugh. And adding that part to it really kind of lets you almost relax to where you're untouchable. You can do anything, and even if you mess up or even if you're wrong on something, the fans are still going to go, man, I love this guy. He's just so like fun to watch, And adding that aspect back into the NXT part, the main thing, and I remember even talking to Triple H about this coming back, the key on why like a group like D-Generation X worked is because you got the goofy, funny stuff, but you also got to see them kick ass in the ring. And when we did the Fashion Files, you never really got us in the ring kicking ass. You never really got that part of it. So when we went back to NXT, they were very adamant on we still want the the fun, the goofiness, all the stuff that people love about you, but now we're going to give you matches where you're going to show what you can do in the ring. And eventually, again, it led to becoming NXT Tag Champions. So it kind of completed what me and Dango were as a tag team, where the people up on Raw and SmackDown almost felt a little ripped off that they never really got to see that up there. They got the great part, which made them care about us, but they never got the other part of it. And NXT really did a great job of completing us.
Oh yeah, but do you think if you remained on the main roster that you would be discussed because you were fresh, you went over with the fans, with us? Do you think you would be discussed as tag team champions potentially?
I don't think so. I don't think it would have ever happened up on Raw and SmackDown. Because especially too, there was a time when like we got really hot as a babyface tag team. They were really behind what we were doing. Like they loved the Fashion Files. They really liked what we were doing, and they cared about us to the point where even if we did, I think some in-ring like promo segment stuff with like the New Day and stuff like that, and we were right in there with them. You know what I mean? It wasn't way out. These random guys that nobody cares about. It was right there where they could have done something good with us. And I remember there was even 1 or 2 times where I think they were going to make the number 1 contenders, or they were going to do something. And it was the only time I've ever really thought, man, I think they kind of missed the boat on how hot we were right there. And I just don't know if they ever would have kind of really let it go. You know what I mean? It would have just kind of been what it had been, and then away we go. So I kind of think going to NXT was the right call on that.
And what part does the title actually represent when you talk between with other wrestlers? Because you also have in your career, for example, you are the only one who competed with Jushin Thunder Liger in WWE. You had Fashion Files. And is it crucial to have many titles, long reigns, and similar?
I think that kind of goes from individual to individual, or what you guys, as fans view as important. I know when I was talking to Triple H, about, titles and stuff like that, where I think I was talking about maybe working with Dream and winning the North American title. And he kind of just gave me an option of like, look, man, he goes, there's been a lot of really, really good people who have never won titles. Like you can't really say that they're not good if they weren't world champion or they weren't, whatever. And once you kind of think of that, you go, you know what? A title serves a purpose. It's, it's, if you want to make somebody, take them to the next level or show that they're important or whatever you want to do, then a title's a great thing to give somebody to make them, go up a level or wherever they need to go. But I think if somebody's really hot and they're really clicking, they're really doing everything else, maybe they don't need the title. You know what I mean? And again, maybe it's for their own personal liking to say that they're a former heavyweight champion or whatever you want to say on your resume, if there is a thing. But some people it's very important to. Other people's it's not. I never really thought too much about it. It was just kind of like, like if I went to work and they said, hey, we're going to make you the world heavyweight champion today, I'd go, okay, cool. And if they went, hey, you're not booked today, I'd go, all right, cool. You know what I mean? Like, it's not up to me. It's your company. You can do whatever you'd like with me. And I know that whatever opportunity you give me, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And that's why you should pay me to do this job. But, if a title works into a good story and people care about it, awesome. But really, I don't think it's, something to hang your hat on or be disappointed about if you never had them.
Yeah, especially because at the end of the day, pro wrestling isn't a sport. It technically isn't a competition. You obviously somebody can be a better wrestler, better character, better worker, but it's not up to him competing with this guy on some fair grounds. It's characters and it's writing and it's people writing. So it's not all up to you, so to speak. So you cannot be disappointed. Let's say, you can, so to speak, but you can't say, I did all the hard work, but some people just didn't see me in some company as the champion or whatever.
Yeah, and if you want to, again, if you want to take that as an insult, like as a performer, if you want to take that as an insult of like, wow, they never gave me a title or whatever, that's up to you, I guess. You know what I mean? But it's not as insulting as some people take it. It's, if you go out there and you put on a good performance or you do something like the Fashion Files and people enjoy it, like you should take pride in that. If I actually wrote down, what I got to accomplish in my career and who I got to work with and my friends that when they saw that they were working me that night were happy about it and they went, oh, this is going to be fun. Like that's more important to me than, well, he was world heavyweight champion. He was never world heavyweight champion, whatever. The rest, those are just bonuses, you know what I mean? And stuff to write on things. But I think to me, at least there's more important things. Even when we open up a school, our front office is just kind of the things that we've done, whether it's, match cards or pictures or whatever. And when you look around, it's like, you've had a pretty good career, man. You've had a good resume here of like why you should be teaching the next generation. You know what I mean? And again, if people don't see that, then they're kind of missing the point. But everybody is entitled to their opinion and everybody can kind of do their own thing or feel a certain way. So if you have your heart set on becoming the world heavyweight champion, all the power to you, man. But if it doesn't happen, you can't be mad about it because you don't own the company, and whoever owns the company can literally do whatever they want with it.
Tell me this: how did you come up with the beauty shot as a finish?
So funny enough, I actually, and I'm like a weird dude, man. I'm like a little psycho. Where back in, when I was in high school or like even like middle school, I was always big into, obviously, I was big into video games. So I was big into the WWE games, and I loved when you could make like a custom superstar and you could make somebody. So I would make who I was going to be when I grew up. And I'd go through all the moves and I would literally go, all right, I could do this, 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 I could do this. And I had a list, I had a general like idea of what my move set was going to be and what my finishers were going to be. And I think when I was, I don't know, maybe 12, 13, 14, the RKO was going to be my finisher. And then Randy started doing it on TV and I went, no, it's gone. So the other one that I had was the spin kick. And it was always going to be the spin kick, where it was kind of a variation of like Owen Hart did one, but he kind of did it more like with his back. And Edge kind of did one where he jumped up a little bit more and kind of hit you with the side of his leg. And I always thought that was really cool So I was like, you know what? I bet I could do this. I bet I could do this. And especially once you start getting into wrestling, you know, I'm pretty sure when I was, you know, 12, 13, 14, I had it written down on my sheet of paper that I was going to be like 6'2" and 225 pounds. It doesn't happen that way. So all of a sudden you start going, all right, I'm not really going to be like picking up and slamming a lot of people, but you know, if I'm wrestling Kane or the Big Show or anyone, I could jump up and kick him in the head. So it just kind of works with everybody. And it just kind of was one of those things that I figured out early on. I happened to be able to do it, and it ended up sticking.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Obviously, you were mentioning great people that you worked with and pride in that. Is there like a move that you were afraid to take? It's like you from someone's moveset, like finisher or something, that you were like, unfortunately, I have to take this move, sell this move tonight. Like, is there a move like that? I remember Hideo Itami speaking about that, or Samoa Joe. It was, I can remember that he hated taking coup de grace from Finn Balor because he felt like it was scary if he messed it up.
Sure. I don't know. So this was actually a thing that I got from Lance, where you know, when people started banning moves, so like a pile driver got banned and this and that, and Lance's personal stance on that was the moves shouldn't be banned, the people should be banned from doing them who can't do them safely. And I went, oh, that's pretty good. And so once you're working with people that are like safe and you know they're going to take care of you and everything else, you can do whatever you want to. You know what I mean? I'm not scared of any of this stuff. It's more along the lines of like, if I've never worked you before and, you know, a basic move can hurt me if you're not very good. So not so much the moves that scared me. I think there was a couple that I didn't know if I could actually take. Like I was working with Cole and I went, dude, I don't know if I can take your little Canadian Destroyer thing. I don't know if I can take it. And he was like,
I fucking hate that move.
Yeah.
I fucking hate that move.
Well, and that,
Stupid.
and now you see a lot of them, you know what I mean? Before it used to be kind of like a big deal. Now it's not really a thing. But again, I could see people and they took it like crazy, or they took it, you know, and I went, I don't know how you do that. I don't even know like if I could do that safely and make it look good. Like me personally, I wouldn't be so much worried about me getting hurt because he's never hurt anybody with it. But I just don't think I could make it look as good as I'd want to. So I would just kind of be like, hey, if you do something else, I could make that look really good. I'd rather do that one. Not so much like, again, as a scared to take a move or a danger thing, but just more of a, I'd hate to like build a really good match and then just, you know, let the air out of it by just taking a really bad move that looks like crap. You know what I mean? So
nobody, trust me, nobody can make a Canadian Destroyer look good. People who like it are crazy.
I love how much you hate it. I love how much you hate that move.
I mean, but it's so, the guy doesn't move for you. He flips. What the fuck?
So
he literally flips.
So let me ask you this. What do you think of a Spanish fly?
I don't know. It's shit as well. I don't know.
Cool. Spanish flies are probably my most hated, I think.
Listen. Obviously, it's wrestling, and if I raise this kind of issue, somebody would say, "Well, it's all, yeah,
sure."
And it just looks so unconvincing. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah, and that's the thing, man. Is like, and again, everybody's got their opinion on what they like and everything else. My personal preference, there's just certain things that are really hard to, you know, especially if you're doing a great job and the people they're giving into what your match is. And they're going, man, this is awesome. There's certain things that take too much time, or you have to work so hard together to like set it up and make it look clean and not kill each other, that it just takes you out of what we're doing. You know what I mean? And some guys can do it. Some guys love it. Some guys hate it. Some guys can't do it. It just kind of is what it is. But it's never really been, you know, the Spanish fly, especially like when you slowly have to set it up top and you guys are just clutching onto each other. I can never do it to make it look good or anything like that. So I'm kind of in the same belief of like, some people like it. I don't really like it.
Let me ask you then about this one. And I don't know if even you would remember this, but do you remember when you were working with Sami Zayn once? I believe it was you. I can't remember. I was watching it on YouTube. He had his finisher from Ring of Honor, Orange Crush, where he would he was for powerbomb setup, and then he would like kind of a pop handle, but you had to literally give him your arms between your legs.
Yep.
And it was so obvious. And I don't know, you guys kind of botched it. sorry for that term. I know it's a wrong term, but I don't know if he knew what he was aiming for because it kind of looked sloppy. But it's such a dumb move. If you have a YouTube later, please type it in Orange Crush Sami Zayn WWE because it looked so weird.
It was so I believe that's the only time he's ever attempted it in WWE.
Yes, probably.
And I think it was my idea. I think I told him, I was like, hey man, you used to do this thing. And he went, oh, it was like, I used to do that with like guys a lot smaller, man. He's like, I don't know if I can do it with like, you're like 20, 30 pounds heavier than anyone I've ever done it with. And I went, okay, so what do I need to do? And it was, you got to get your arms between your legs. Otherwise it's going to kind of be stumbling all over the place. And I think I got one of my arms in between, and I don't think I got my second one in between. And when he popped me, I got him, but he started stumbling, and I just held on to him and was like, don't let go of me. Like, let's just keep going. And it's not so much that you botch something or mess it up, because there's really no mess ups in wrestling.
Yeah.
It's just not like a clean, like not everything needs to be this like clean picture perfect thing.
Yeah.
We still got where we were going. But again, it was one of those things where it was like, I was heavier than most guys that he did it with. And I didn't give him that one part of the setup to where, if that's that important, that's a lot of room for error, man, because in the heat of the moment, maybe my arm isn't there. And again, I even knew to put my arms there, and one made it, one didn't.
Yeah, but you actually, in the end, you pulled it off, even though it was picture perfect. And it obviously, again, shouldn't.
Yeah.
But you actually pulled it off. Congratulations on that. But that move is catastrophe.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, that's a lot of room for error on that one. And there's a lot of creative moves out there, but I know for me, my personal preference is if the room for error is too big, I just won't even try to do it.
Yeah, but I mean, look at the attempts to ban moves like curb stomp for Rollins. He has been doing it for years, and you take it away from him. AJ Styles being banned to use Styles Crush when he came.
Yeah,
he did phenomenal forearm, which is way cooler in my opinion
yeah.
than Styles Crush. But for someone who watched your video with Chris Van Wille, even chops can be dangerous.
Oh, you'd be surprised. Most of the time when guys get injured on stuff, or when things don't even go wrong, it's just like a mind slip or whatever. It's always the basic stuff that gets you. The crazy move that you take off the top through something or whatever. Those ones never get you. Those ones always somehow end up being fine. But like I broke my finger by someone kneeling on it to pin me. Bryan Danielson just broke his arm by getting landed on an elbow drop. Like nothing crazy. Like it just happens when you do it this many times,
Yeah, infamous semi-injury when he was celebrating on his end.
Yeah. Threw his arms up in the air, dislocated his shoulder, man. It's always this stupid little stuff.
Yeah, I think Randy actually once injured himself throwing trash in the can.
Yep. Yeah, he set up the RKO, slammed his arms on the ground, and all of a sudden popped his shoulder out. Like, it's always stuff like that. I've seen a couple guys blow their knees out just getting in and out of the ring. Wow. Stuff like that.
Yeah, I remember one of the most horrific ones was Psycho Sid. I remember him of the second rope. Wow, that was another dumb move.
Yeah.
Like, why would you?
Yeah.
He won't stop with the moves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me this. You had your first match in almost 2 years, right?
Yep.
How did you feel?
It was good. It was fun. It's just kind of one of those things where you realize, like, I don't really miss the travel. I don't really miss, the waiting around, the spending your whole day at somewhere. I don't miss all that stuff. But I miss the crowd. When you're in front of a crowd and the people are doing what you want them to do, there's nothing like it. It's so fun, man. That's why bands and rock stars keep going and going and going. That's why wrestlers keep going and going. They live for the crowd, man. And getting back in there and feeling the fun that the crowd was having and being a part of it was awesome. It was very, very cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. All of you guests which we had here, you can then musicians like Devon Baldwin, like Jason Page, in split second when you mention crowd, you go nuts.
Every time. Because that's, again, it's the whole thing. Like you can lose that, and you kind of lose the reason why we do this every now and then when it gets clouded with a lot of different things. But when you bring it back to the basics and you get what's the real reward from this, it's always that.
Yeah, and I think that's why COVID era was so relentless with pro wrestling fans, because if we cannot hear the crowd responding to this, what's the point?
Yep. I hated it. So I actually was just talking to somebody about this yesterday. I remember one of the first empty arena matches that I was having was with Tony Nese on like 205 or something.
Oh yeah.
And we were doing a match, and like the match was going exactly how we wanted it to, and everything was going great. But I think he had me in like a chin lock or something, and I went, "Man, this sucks." And he went, "Yeah." And it's like, as a performer, you feel like you're getting ripped off, because I know that if a crowd was there, they would have been having fun and into it. But there's no crowd there, and so now you're just kind of sitting here thinking, why are we doing this? Like this is really bad. This sucks. I'm not having any fun. And, unfortunately for the time, it just kind of, it was what it was, and you couldn't do anything about it. But man, it really felt like you were getting ripped off when there was no crowd there.
Yeah, and especially in big moments like when you won NXT Tag Team Championships.
Yeah.
Crew workers, right, in the audience just...
Yeah. It was just a couple, like, I think maybe friends and family, some coworkers, some other wrestlers that weren't on the shows yet, stuff like that. But yeah, very small crowd. There was just this like disingenuous kind of like, okay, well, clap, because it's quiet as hell in here. We should probably make some noise. But man, it's not the same. You know what I mean?
But on screen, at least, Thunderdome was phenomenal solution. It was so cool concept.
Very different, man. Like very, very cool in terms of, putting an entire arena with all that stuff and the people on there. It was very, very cool. And probably, hopefully, never done again. But the way the way that it was kind of cool. That setup of everything.
Yeah. How did it feel in the ring?
Kind of the same as like that empty arena. It was still, there was faces there, but it still wasn't. It's just not the same.
It was like a museum.
A little bit, yeah. Like, yeah, you were there. You had a job to do. We still had TV to do, but it just wasn't. It just wasn't what it could be.
Yeah, but tell me, you obviously mentioned how you didn't miss travels and waiting all day, that kind of a thing. Did that kind of a life of a wrestler, was that hard on you physically and mentally? Because I know there are even some guys, I remember at the end of a year, there was a list of guys who done the most matches, and I saw some people doing 200 plus matches a year. I'm like, how do you keep up with this?
Yeah, I think
twice on Sunday.
that's right. So I'm pretty sure, if I looked it up, I want to say it was 2016 or 2017. One of those years, I had the most matches in WWE, and it was 270.
Wow.
And yeah, and it was just like, I remember at the time, I didn't think anything of it. You just kind of go. But when you stop, like once you stop for a second and realize what a blur it is, it's crazy. You kind of realize that you're just this like walking zombie, where if I sit down, I'm probably going to fall asleep. But if I don't ever sit down, I'm probably just never going to sleep, because I can just kind of keep going and do what you need me to do. And eventually it all catches up at some point when you take a breath. But before then, it's just you're on autopilot, man. You know that you go airport, rental car, gym, eat, show, drive. Like, it just becomes so routine that, it's like somebody waking up in their own bed and, go to the kitchen to make coffee, and they have breakfast and they start their work day and everything else. And it just becomes a routine. But it really goes by very, very fast, to where, again, when I kind of stopped and took a breath, I went, man, that 5 years just blew past. I can't remember a thing from it unless I look back on like the matches that I had and whatever. But yeah, it's crazy life.
Yeah, and it leads to crazy situations, because I, in my opinion, almost every wrestler has one crazy story from road trip. Do you have one?
See, this is,
have a million.
I probably have a million of them. The thing is that I don't remember any of them until until I get reminded of like one little thing. So like, I have a book that I write down every match that I've ever had in. So I'll write down like, okay, I think the last one I just wrote down was the one that I had, and it was like number 1180. This was the date. This was the time. This was the person. This was whatever. And wherever that is, that'll spur some sort of memory for me. And I'll go, I don't remember this match at all. And then you go, well, that was the match. That was because we did this and this and this, and it was funny. So it's hard to kind of like go back and remember certain things. But I know I've definitely had like some crazy times where even just you're on a Europe tour or something like that, and you're just on the road for 19 days straight, and just it's funny, you get to like an airport and it's like 3 a.m. and everybody just goes crazy at the duty free and they just start buying random stuff because we've been on the road for 11 days and we're going nuts, and it's just a weird. Again, there's nothing like it. I don't know. I'd have to really think. I would have to really think of like my craziest road story to see if I could think of one, because I know there's some, but I don't know.
Write it down and send it to us.
That's right.
But did that ever happen, like where you were, for example, at one continent, let's say Europe, and you arrive and day after or couple of days after you are immediately on live TV?
Yes. So I remember the longest that I ever did, the longest kind of in a row that I did was 19 days. And it was, I think, because it used to be a lot kind of busier than it is now. So where you'd fly out Friday morning at like 5 or 6 in the morning, and then you would do live events on Friday, live events on Saturday, live events on Sunday, and then you do Raw on Monday and SmackDown on Tuesday. So I remember at the start of this 19-day run, we did live event Friday, live event Saturday, live event Sunday, Raw on Monday, Raw on Tuesday, fly right to Europe, and then we do Europe shows Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Monday was Raw in London or wherever we were. SmackDown was Tuesday, and then we went right back to another show Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, flew back to the States Sunday, did Raw Monday, did SmackDown Tuesday, and then you were done. It was something like that. And so there was, it's crazy, man. Like, and again, it's not like when you do Europe either. It's like, right next to each other. Like a lot of the times you're hopping on, you're doing a show and then you go right to the airport and you fly to somewhere else. And it's just going through customs of, Italy, Spain, we did like Sweden and all these random places where you're just kind of Ireland, Scotland, like you're just kind of doing everywhere possible. But it's almost that where you're just kind of a walking zombie of like, I'm going here, I'm going to the airport, I'm sleeping on the plane, I'm getting up, where are we now? Oh, go to this hotel. Okay, cool. Here's a show. You know what I mean? So yeah, pretty nuts. That was the craziest one for me, I think.
I could go for hours, but I have to contain myself.
Sure.
In conversation with you. But tell me this as well. I saw headlines recently about your contract with WWE, and what's the truth? Are you under the contract, or is it just for up, down, down? I didn't read.
I'm under contract with up, down, down.
And could we see you in the ring?
You could, but it would be a different contract.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, before we wrap up, we have a little tradition where we translate a quote from Montenegrin language to English, and Luka prepared something. Okay, so since we're talking about wrestling and wrestling has to do with stories, the Nobel Prize winner from ex-Yugoslavia who lived in Montenegro for some time had this quote about stories and storytelling. In our language it says, svaka priča svako priča svoju priču po svojoj unutrašnjoj potrebi, po mjeri svojih naslijeđenih ili stečenih okolnosti i shvatanja i snazi svojih izražajnih mogućnosti. Svako nosi moralnu odgovornost za ono što priča i svakoga treba pustiti da slobodno priča. And on English it would say, everyone tells their story according to their inner need, according to the measure of their inherited or acquired tendencies and understanding, and the strength of their expressive possibilities. Everyone bears moral responsibility for what they say, and everyone should be allowed to speak freely.
Ooh, that's a pretty good one.
You couldn't hear this even in Europe, but you could hear.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Thank you for this opportunity, Tyler.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me, guys. It was fun.
We stay genuine, uncensored and unscripted, and we always will, as we have to order our usual. Share us and subscribe us, and stay tuned until the next Wednesday. Ikuzo!